Hello everyone. Today we are going to discuss one of the important topics, that is anemia. This lecture we will discuss in two parts, anemia 1 and anemia 2. Uh, this anemia 1 lecture will be uploaded in two parts due to time limitation. So we'll start about anemia. You all know what is the definition of anemia. It means decreased level of hemoglobin, or technically we can say it is the imbalance between production and destruction of RBCs. So anemia can occur in various conditions. There are various types of anemias. Anemia can occur due to blood loss. It can occur due to impairment of red blood cell synthesis, or it can occur due to increased destruction of red blood cells. So these are the various types of anemias. In pharmacology, what we are concerned is about the deficiency of iron, which is leading to anemia, means decreased synthesis in RBC due to deficiency of iron. That is what we are going to learn, right? Otherwise anemia can occur due to various other reasons also. So what we are going to discuss today is iron deficiency anemia, means Hb is this level of Hb is being decreased due to deficiency of iron. So before going to discuss iron deficiency anemia, you should be aware that iron is one of the important element of the body, right? It is known since ancient times. So it is one of the important element which is required for the synthesis of RBC, right? So we'll discuss various elements of iron deficiency anemia. So before discussing iron deficiency anemia and various formulations allowed or various formulations available for treating anemia, you should be aware about the how iron is being absorbed, how iron is being transported and utilized in the body, right? So first we'll discuss the normal part, or you can say physiological part of the iron. So in the distribution of the iron in the body, total is 2.5 to 5 gram. That is the total store of the iron. Amongst this 2.5 to 5 gram, the 62%, you can see the majority of the part is utilized for the synthesis of hemoglobin. 25% is being stored, means whenever there is deficiency from this, the stored part will be utilized for the synthesis of Hb. The small part is in myoglobin, in the muscle protein, and small part is 6% is parenchymal iron. This parenchymal iron is utilized for the synthesis of various enzymes. Now, the stored part, you can see that it exists in the two forms, ferrous form and ferric form. Fe3 plus is the ferric iron, Fe2 plus is the ferrous iron. The ferric iron is always a storage part, right? So we'll see when we discuss the metabolism how it is stored, but routinely along with the apoferritin, this ferric iron will stored in the form of ferritin. This arrow is here. So apoferritin plus ferric iron, it will form ferritin, and when this ferritin get aggregates, it will form hemosiderin aggregations, right? So you have to remember that the storage form is Fe3 plus, that is ferric iron, and the storage site for iron is reticuloendothelial cells. It is the site where it is being stored. Now coming to average daily requirement, these are the various forms, means where it is, how it is amount that is required by various categories. Male 0.5 to 1 mg, menstruation woman 1 to 2 mg. Now you can see that remarkably the demand raised during pregnancy and lactation period. So in that period usually the iron requirement is more. That's why iron supplement plus folic acid supplement is essentially required during pregnancy and sometimes lactation period also, right? Growing children 25 microgram per kg, so that is the average daily requirements. Now these are the various sources. We can classify the sources in two categories: heme sources and non-heme sources. You can see this heme sources are the non-veg dietary sources. These all are veg dietary sources: fruits, jaggery, these are green leafy vegetables, these are important vegetarian. Now this difference is important: heme sources and non-heme sources. They are divided into these two categories. Why? Because we'll discuss this in during absorption part, that the absorption of iron from these sources, heme sources, is more compared to non-heme sources. It is almost 35% compared to 5 to 10% in non-heme sources. So non-veg diet will provide more iron compared to vegetarian diet, right? That is important to remember. Otherwise you can remember all these sources. Okay, now we'll discuss how iron get absorbed, how it gets transported and utilized and stored. Okay, so before going to absorption transportation part, we'll first discuss absorption part. You can see that heme iron and non-heme iron, these two are shown separately in the absorption part. Each diet has both the form, but heme iron is more in non-veg diet, right? Veg diet also have heme iron, but it is less compared to this non-heme iron. So when someone ingests food into the body, depending upon this available form, heme iron and non-heme iron, they will have different route of transportation across this mucosal cells. These are the mucosal cells. So heme iron will get transported across the mucosal cell with the use of this heme transporter, right? And this non-heme iron, it will get transported to this DMT1, that is divalent metal transporter. Through this transporter it will get absorbed into the mucosal cells. Once this either heme or non-heme inside the mucosal cell, they are transported across the mucosal cells in the plasma by one transporter, that is ferroprotein, FP transporter. Both will get transported via this ferroprotein. So here the transporter is common, but through the mucosal cells the transporter are different, right? So heme iron will get more transported. Apart from that, this transportation is not dependent, or it means it cannot be affected by other factors, right? Means by other food or any other medicine, it will get least affected. While absorption of this non-heme iron, which is in the form of ferrous, right, before getting transported, this which is in the stored form, ferric Fe+3 will get converted into Fe+2, and then it will get transported across the cells. Here you can see Fe+3 getting converted into Fe+2 and then DMT1 transporter, right? So this transportation will get affected by other factors also. This figure is from the KDT itself, and it is very nicely explained, whole absorption plus transportation. So factors that can affect transportation of non-heme iron, they are mostly factors like that. Some factors increase absorption like acid or some other vitamin C or some amino acid, they can enhance the absorption. While some factors that reduce the absorptions like antacids, some phosphates, some drugs like tetracycline, they will reduce the absorption, but that is for non-heme. Heme absorption will not get affected by this. Okay, now once it is inside the mucosal cell, by ferroprotein it will get transported to the plasma. But here is one more thing to discuss, that is mucosal block. This is the, you can say it is like a curtain that is available. It is known as ferritin curtain. Curtain means it is the barrier like situation where uh, if excess amount of iron is there, it will not get absorbed through the plasma by FP1 but will remain stored here within the mucosal cell with the help of apoferritin. Means this Fe plus 2 will get converted into Fe plus 3, and along with the apoferritin it will get stored in the form of ferritin within the mucosal cells, and again when there is required it will get converted into Fe plus 2 and it will get absorbed. So it is like a extra storage, or you can say curtain for the iron, right? And how it is governed or how it uh, maintain the balance, that is depend upon the level of iron, right? If iron store is less, then it will not get stored, it will directly get absorbed through the plasma. So it is known as ferritin curtain. Now coming to transportation and utilization part. Once inside the plasma, right, this Fe plus 2 free form, that is ferrous form, this free form is very toxic, so it cannot be transported within the cell, within the plasma in this form. So immediately it will get converted into Fe plus 3 ferric form, and it will bind with the receptor that is known as transferrin receptor. This transferrin receptor, it will bind with this receptor and it will get circulated within the plasma. Now the sites where it will be available, the most important is erythrocytes, where it is required for the synthesis of hemoglobin, and second is the storage sites. So these are the two sites well where it will have to reach. So first, this erythrocytes, this transferrin protein, it will reach to erythrocyte. You can see they are the receptors, transferrin receptors are there, so it will bind with this receptor. This is the bind form, and once it is bound, it will get engulfed within the erythrocytes, and after being engulfed, the whole complex, receptor plus transferrin plus iron, it will get dissociate, all complex is dissociated and iron is released, and it will be utilized for the storage, utilized for the hemoglobin synthesis, right? There is one part, that is erythrocyte. Second is storage form, that is the most important site for storage, I discussed earlier, is reticuloendothelial cells. So here again, along with the receptor, iron will move inside, and by binding with apoferritin it will form ferritin, and it will remain stored within that sorry, within that reticuloendothelial cells. So this is how it gets absorbed, transported and utilized and stored, right? So if you understand this, various formulation will be easy for you. And one more thing here is how it is regulated. The all the regulating mechanism depends upon the two factors. Means it is being managed by two factors. One is this protein, transferrin protein, and second is apoferritin protein in the curtain part and storage part, right? So whenever there is decreased level of Hb, body will require more iron content. So in that condition, the expression of this receptor, transferrin receptors and transferrin, will be more. So more number of transferrin will get anchored to the erythrocyte compared to this. Expression will be more here on the erythrocyte compared to other storage site. So it will lead to more hemoglobin synthesis. Whenever there is excessive store of iron, the more ferritin will be formed with the help of apoferritin. This is how the balance will be maintained in the state of hemoglobin. Okay, now as we have discussed normal metabolism of iron. Now we'll start discussing what are the various preparations available for the iron. Preparations we broadly divide into two parts. They are iron orally available iron preparations and parenterally available iron preparations. In this orally available iron preparations, you can see these are the various ferrous sulfate, ferrous gluconate, ferrous fumarate, colloidal ferric hydroxide, carboryl iron. These are the various orally available preparations. Here you can see percentage. What are they? 20%, 12%, 33%, 50% carboryl iron. These are the various orally available preparations. Now here you can see this part discuss about elemental iron. You have to understand this term, what is elemental iron. Elemental iron is the iron that is available for the absorption, means once it is available, that content is totally available for the hemoglobin synthesis, that is known as elemental iron. So if you take a tablet of ferrous sulfate, for example, if it is a tablet of 200 mg, that doesn't mean that 200 mg iron is available. Only 20% is the elemental iron, that means 20% of the 200 mg that is available for the absorption. So your requirement will be in terms of elemental iron, not the total dose. So if the body requires suppose 180 mg, you have to give that 180 mg in the form of elemental iron, not in the form of total dose, right? Now oral preparations, the various oral preparations which are available, they are preferable, means compared to parenteral preparations, oral preparations are more you can say suggested, because parenteral preparations have more chances of anaphylactic reactions. However, these oral preparations also have some gastric side effects, but compared to parenteral they are more safe. Now the ferrous sulfate form, it is the cheapest form that is available, and 20% salt elemental iron is available from that. This carboryl iron, it is purely metallic form and it is highly toxic, but still it is said that it is absorbed from the intestine. That's why comparatively it may have lesser side effect. That is the only difference. Other oral preparations are also available, but they have comparatively less iron stored, and they are you can say they are claimed to be more safer. But this ferrous sulfate, gluconate, fumarate, they are all better one. Coming to parenteral iron, first when you will use parenteral iron, so the obvious one of the obvious reason is when oral preparations are not tolerable. They have some side effects like already discussed, epigastric pain, heartburn, right? Sometimes they cause staining of teeth and mucosa, sometimes they cause constipation. So when patient have this kind of intolerable side effects, then you can switch on to parenteral iron. Second is when oral preparations are not properly absorbed in various GIT diseases like malabsorption or any other GIT diseases when it is not absorbed. Second, when patient is unconscious or where you cannot give oral preparations, or obviously when there is a very severe kind of anemia, where because usually when you give iron preparation, the total treatment may last from 2 to 3 months, right? So in such conditions, if patient is having severe anemia where the hemoglobin level is, say, you can if it is less than 8 or 7 or like that, in such conditions we may prefer using parenteral iron. The normal hemoglobin level is usually 12 to 15. In female it can be considered 11, can also be considered as normal, but below that it is anemia. So if less than 9 or 8, you can consider it as a severe anemia, where you can go for parenteral preparations. So these are the indications of using parenteral iron preparations. Calculations in oral part, there is not much calculation is required, because the normal requirement for treating anemia is 200 mg elemental iron. So you have to give 200 mg elemental iron. So suppose for example a tablet is there with 200 mg total dose, and from that suppose 30% is the elemental iron, so 30% of that will get absorbed. So 200 mg, 30% of 200 mg. So if you give 200 mg tablet 3 times in a day, that will provide to around 200 mg elemental iron. So that is the simple calculation for oral preparations. If you give 200 mg 3 times a day, that will usually be sufficient for treating a patient of anemia. For parenteral iron preparations, we have a formula. That formula will be discussed during practicals also, but the formula is 4.4 into body weight into deficit, HB deficit. Means suppose a level of HB is 10 of the patient, and so you want to make it to 12, so 2 is the deficit level, so you have to, and suppose the weight of patient is 70 kg, so 4.4 into 70 into 2, so whatever the comes, that is the requirement of iron in mg. Now remember, that is the total requirement, means it is not that you have to give in a one shot dose. That is the total requirement of iron that you have to give to the patient along the treatment period. That depends upon the formulation that we are using. That will discuss what are the various parenteral preparations available, but that is a total requirement. And this formula also covers the replenishment of store. Now what is that? Replenishment of store means that suppose a patient is having low level of hemoglobin. If you give treatment for 15 to 20 days, or suppose for a month, the hemoglobin level will get corrected. Means patient will be okay with the hemoglobin, but still the storage will be deficit. Why? Because the system, we have discussed whole transportation system. If you see the system, when there is deficit, immediately iron will be available from the store, and that will be utilized for the HB synthesis. Now your HB level is low, that means your stores are empty or decrease in level, then only HB will be low. So when you will start giving iron therapy, first it will correct iron, first it will correct HB status, and then it will get stored in the reticuloendothelial cells. So even after giving 1 month treatment, it will be HB level will get corrected, but to replenish the store, you will require extra treatment. So for oral preparations, 2 to 3 months treatment will cover HB as well as store. And for parenteral iron preparations, the formula that we have discussed, 4.4 into weight into deficit, that total, the answer of that formula will cover replenishment also, right? So if you give that much dose, it will sufficient to cover storage also. Okay, now we'll discuss what are the various preparations that are available for the parenteral part. Oral we have already discussed. Now we'll discuss what are the various parenteral preparations. The first one is iron dextran. Now here you can see the name of formulations, iron dextran, ferrous sucrose. They are different from these oral preparations, where ferrous sulfate, ferrous fumarate was there, where ferrous part was used. They are ionized salt which are used in oral preparation. Here we cannot use ionized salts for this parenteral route, because they are very toxic, right? So special preparations are available which are not toxic to given parenterally. So amongst that, first is iron dextran. It can be given by IM as well as IV route. It is the only preparation which can be given by IM or IV both route, right? And the available elemental iron will be 50 mg per ml. So if you inject 1 ml, it will give 50 mg of elemental iron. Remember, it is not normal total, but it is elemental iron. Important disadvantage for this formulation is that it is highly antigenic, so there are more chances of anaphylactic reactions. So you have to use it with cautions. Again, with caution, initially it was suggested that you have to first give test dose and then start then give normal dose, but now it is not recommended, because even at the time of giving test dose, it can produce the same kind of anaphylactic reaction which can be produced by giving normal dose. So it is not recommended. Now there are two routes, IM and IV. For IM, one important technique is there, uh, that is known as Z technique. This Z technique, it is in figure it is shown, you can see. Z technique, we have to press the skin and then give the injection at the 90-degree angle. Now why this technique is being used? The pressing of this skin will prevent spread of this drug in the superficial layer. What is the role of that? It will prevent staining of surrounding skin. So if you give directly, it can spread in the superficial level and may give rise to staining. In oral dose also we have seen that side effect was there, staining of teeth. So here also staining of skin can occur. So to prevent that, we press the skin and then give it to 90-degree angle, so it will not spread in the superficial layers of the skin. So that will prevent staining. So it is known as Z-track technique. So here you can give 50 mg per ml is the elemental iron that is being provided. 2 ml you can give at a time, so it will provide 100 mg. So suppose if the requirement is 1 gram, you can give 2 ml daily. So you have to give 2 ml, that will provide 100 mg. So 10 days you have to give. So that is how you can calculate the total dose. In the same way you can give IV also. Second formulations is ferrous sucrose. It is comparatively newer and safer formulations. Here you can give, it can be given at the dose of 100 mg elemental iron you can provide, right? And you can give IV. The important role of ferrous sucrose is that it can give into the patients of anemia with kidney disease. Another formulation is ferric carboxy maltose. Usually when you give IV, it gets utilized by reticuloendothelial cells and then released to the erythrocytes. So it has rapid absorption. Here also you can give, it can give 100 mg elemental iron. Another one is iron isomaltoside 1000. Here it is bound to the isomaltoside 1000, that is how the name is given. Here it can be given by 1 to 2 gram. Yes, this is the differentiating point you can see. Here 100 mg you can give, here 1 to 2 gram IV. Now why this difference is there? Because you can see that it is rapidly taken up by into reticuloendothelial cells and then slowly released to the cells. Means in other formulations, whatever amount you give, it will be directly available to the cells in the large amount. Here it is taken up by reticuloendothelial cells, and it will slowly release. So you can give larger amount up to 1 to 2 gram at a same time. So here you will require multiple injections. Here you can cover it within the single injection. So that is the important advantage of this preparation, that is iron isomaltoside 1000. And even it is less immunogenic, so there are less chances of anaphylactic reactions. Anaphylactic reaction chances are more in iron dextran formulations compared to other formulations. Side effects of parenteral injections are common, which is common for all other injections. Maybe pain, maybe rashes, maybe abscess formation, pigmentation. This kind of side effects are there in each and every preparation, but anaphylactic reaction is more in iron dextran preparations. So these are the various formulations. Today we have discussed the absorption, transportation, utilizations, and various formulation that are available. Next is uses and side effects. From here onwards, we will discuss in the next lecture, that is anemia 2, right? This lecture, anemia 1, will be available in 2 videos. Anemia 2 will be uploaded in the next lecture. Thank you.